Good morning, everybody. I'm Nupur. Welcome, everybody, to my YouTube channel, Nature at the Very Core of Science. Today, I have picked up a very interesting topic, historical topic. And this is about the meatpacking plants in the United States, long back. So let's see what was the condition in the meatpacking plants. And this reading selection is Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. So basically conditions in meatpacking plants were at that time very unsanitary. The floors and equipment were never cleaned. Workers had no regulations for washing their hands or wearing gloves. Rats fed on the meat and left behind their waste. Companies used deceptive and dangerous practices to increase the profits. As usual, chemicals were used as preservative and meat was often adulterated. Substances, that means added, making it poorer quality. So, we will find out from this excerpt the examples of the unsanitary practices which was followed in the meatpacking industry. Let's see. It is going to be very interesting. Please let me know your comments. I will be enthralled to interact with you. The pig was cut up and mixed with half a ton of other meat. No odor that ever was in a ham could make any difference. There was never the least attention paid to what was cut up for sausage. There would come all the way back from Europe old sausage that had been rejected and that was moldy and white. It would be dosed with borax and glycerin for sweetener preservative, and dumped into the hoppers and made over again for home consumption. There would be meat that had tumbled out on the floor in the dirt and sawdust where the workers had tramped and spit. There would be meat stored in great piles in rooms, and the water from leaky roofs would drip over it, and thousands of rats would race about on it. It was too dark in these storage places to see well, but a man could run his hand over these piles of meat and sweep off handfuls of the dried waste of rats. These rats were nuisances, and the packers would put poisoned bread out for them. They would die, and then rats, bread, and meat would go into the hoppers together. This is no fairy story and no joke, believe me. The meat would be shoveled into carts, and the man who did the shoveling would not trouble to lift out a rat even when he saw one. There were things that went into the sausage in comparison with which a poisoned rat was a tidbit. There was no place for the man to wash their hand before they ate their dinner, and so they made a practice of washing them in the water that was to be ladled into the sausage. Some of it they would make into smoked sausage. But as the smoking took time and was therefore expensive, they would call upon their chemistry department and preserve it with borax and color it with gelatin to make it brown. All of their sausage came out of the same bowl, but when they come to wrap it, they would stamp some of it special, and for this they would charge 2 cents more a pound. So, working in the meatpacking industry during the early 1900s was dangerous. There were no safety precautions and workplace accidents were common, diseases were common too, workers suffered from skin infections because they did not wear gloves and were handling cold meat and intestines. Lung infections were more dangerous, they could lead to pneumonia and death. So let's see what happened at that time to the meat workers. And the thing is that the butchers and floor men, the beef bones and trimmers and all of those who use knives, you could scarcely find a person who had the use of his thumb. Time and time again the base of it had been slashed till it was a mere lump of flesh against which the man pressed the knife to hold it. The hands of these men would be crisscrossed with cuts until you could no longer pretend to count them or to trace them. They would have no nails. They had worn them off pulling hides. Their knuckles were swollen so that their fingers spread out like a fan. There were the beef luggers who carried 200-pound quarters into the refrigerator cars, a fearful kind of work that began at 4 o'clock in the morning and that were out the most powerful men in a few years. There were those who worked in the chilling rooms and whose special disease was the rheumatism, a kind of inflammation, you can understand, the pain in the joints. The time limit that a man could work in the chilling rooms was said to be 5 years, maximum. Some worked at the stamping machines, and it was very seldom that one could work long there at the pace that was set and not give out and forget himself and have a part of his hand chopped off. So pity. Worst of any, however, were the fertilizer men and those who served in the cooking rooms. These people could not be shown to the visitor, for the odor of a fertilizer man would scare any ordinary visitor at 100 yards. And as for the other men who worked in tank rooms full of steam, and in some of which there were open vats near the level of the floor, their peculiar trouble was that they fell into the grinders. And when they were fished out, there was never enough of them left to be seen. Sometimes they would be overlooked for days, till all but the bones of them had gone out to the world as Durham's pure leaf lard. It's a type of cooking fat. So this was the situation that working in the meatpacking industry during the early 1900s.